Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Katie, a member of the CK12 team, and my colleague Lindsay and I will be running today's webinar, Community Contributed and Non-STEM Content on CK12. We're so glad you've joined us.
Yeah, hello everyone, I'm Lindsay, and before working for CK12, I taught high school English and video production for 10 years, so I'm really excited to be one of the instructors on today's webinar, because even though I didn't teach a math or science subject, there are still so many ways that I could have used the CK12 platform to make my teaching easier and help students with their learning. So I can't wait to give you all some ideas.
Before we get started with the main content of today's webinar, I want to make sure everyone is comfortable with the Zoom webinar platform. You'll see two different options on your Zoom screen, one for Q&A and one for chat. I think they're both already up and running today. So if you have a question for us, please post it in the Q&A window. This helps us kind of track questions and make sure we get to answering all of them. And the chat window is a place for a community conversation. Feel free to introduce yourself. If you're an educator, share where you live and the subject you teach. And make sure you're sending posts to all panelists and attendees. Sometimes we get people that introduce themselves and tell us great things and they don't share it with all the attendees and then everyone else misses out. So choose that all panelists and attendee option. And then while we don't anticipate any technical issues, if you have trouble with your video or your sound, please let us know in the Q&A or the chat window and we'll go from there. So we've created a handy resource page for each webinar session we offer. You can find this one at the tiny URL listed on the screen, tinyurl.com/CK12 CC non-STEM for community contributed non-STEM. And we'll also put the link for today's resource in the chat window right now. You're welcome to print this resource page or simply save it to your desktop. We hope you can use it after this webinar as a reference for when you're working on finding and customizing your content. Before Lindsay introduces you to today's main topics, I want to launch a quick poll to learn more about who is on the webinar today. Let's see if we can get that up there and running. And you'll see the poll has two questions. The first is, what non-STEM subject areas are you hoping to learn more about during this webinar? So are you someone that is working with social studies, language arts, foreign language, arts, or some other? Feel free to put any other options in the chat window if you want to share what you're hoping to get out of it. And then also, what areas are you most interested in today? Creating a FlexBook from scratch, finding community contributed content on the website, or creating your own questions and maybe even own quizzes for CK12, for using on CK12. So I will pause for a few seconds to let you finish answering this poll. Okay, we're about half of you have answered, so we'll give you a little bit longer to kind of work your way through there and see if we can get some of the rest of your answers in there. There's a bunch of different choices, so. Okay, so I think with that, maybe we'll kind of end that and see what the results are from there and share those with you guys. So it looks like most of you are here for language arts, arts itself, or some other option, and hopefully we'll start seeing some of those other areas populating in the chat window. We love to hear what you want to do and use our platform for as well. And then kind of the main piece is either finding content on our website or creating questions to go with your content, which is definitely helpful. But then also some of you are looking to create a FlexBook from scratch. So that's kind of helps us as we work our way through our options for today.
Sure, it's interesting. I guess we could have a lot of people on the other who are still math and science teachers. So this is a webinar that's kind of doing two things, trying to show people who maybe usually come to us for math and science, some other cross-curricular ideas, and again, what CK12 offers for non-STEM content. But then I'm also going to be talking about the community contributed tab, which is a feature that a lot of users don't even know that we offer. So if you're whatever you are in that other category that you guys answered there, hopefully we're going to touch on some topics that will have an impact on your teaching right away. So let's talk about what we're doing today. In today's webinar, we're going to be covering the following topics. Like I said, I'm going to show you some of the non-STEM CK12 content we have to offer. We're going to talk about navigating the schools page where you can find a variety of resources that other schools and districts have created. I'm going to show you how to find community contributed content by other teachers, educators that they've uploaded to our site for you to take and reuse and remix. We're going to talk about creating a FlexBook from scratch. If you want to start from a blank template, we can do that. And then also, if you're wanting to use our quiz feature, you have the ability to write your own questions. So I'm going to show you that as well. To frame today's webinar, I do think it's helpful to remind everybody about the CK12 Foundation's main priority when it comes to developing content for our users. So one of our missions is on the screen here, and it's to advance learning of science and math with world-class, multimodal, free, customized curriculum content and assessment on a digital platform that will lead to personalized instruction and reduced workload for teachers. A key word there is, I would assume most of you know that we are a free resource. Everything on CK12 is 100% free. So that's very exciting. But one question that we get asked all of the time is if there are plans to expand our content to offer more non-STEM areas. And the short answer to that is no. We have comprehensive coverage for middle school and high school math and science, and have started building out more elementary content such as our K-5 science books. But most of the initiatives at CK12 focus on enhancing our math and science content to personalize learning for students. Our steady growth in other subject areas is all thanks to teachers like you who are creating content on our site and sharing it with users from around the world. So the first thing that I want to show you in this webinar is the non-STEM content that we do have available for you. On our homepage, if you're looking at our subject browser here, just make sure that you expand to all subjects, and you should off to the right see that we have English branches and more branches that include engineering, technology, astronomy, history, and health. So some of the FlexBooks that we have available in these subject areas include all these that are listed on your screen. For writing, we have a common sense composition book, which I'm actually going to show you here in a second. We've got a journalism book. Glyphata method talks about an essay writing system. We have some spelling materials for students and a teacher edition to match. We have some history content, an advanced and basic U.S. history source book. And we have some health materials, Health Core resource, and then a teen health literacy FlexBook as well. So these are books that, again, have the CK12 stamp of approval on it that we've helped create or digitize, available for you to start using right away. But one thing that I want you to know, if you're familiar with our resources, is that while we have FlexBooks on all of those subjects that I just showed you, we don't necessarily have the other modalities that go with it. So what you're seeing on the screen is a concept page for ecosystems. And our math and science concept pages come with different modalities. So you're going to see reads and Plix and videos, practice, real world activities. Most of our non-STEM subjects just have FlexBooks or individual reads or lessons that the community has contributed. Spelling is an exception because it does have adaptive practice as well. But just wanted to let you know it's a little different. We don't have all of these resources available for our non-STEM subjects. So that doesn't mean that we don't have some interdisciplinary concepts that would work well in your subject area. For instance, if you've ever attended one of our interactive webinars, you've seen that our math and science Plix often overlap with other concepts as well. Our interactives team actually makes an effort to keep non-STEM subjects in mind when creating their Plix. So depending on your subject, we might have a Plix that would be perfect for your area of study, or even some that lend themselves to a cross-discipline unit, especially as core subjects like math, have a focus on testing, but we're doing literacy across subjects. We're really seeing some awesome overlap with teachers collaborating across subjects. So here's just a few to give you a sample. The one that you're looking at on the screen right now is graphs of system of linear inequalities in two variables. But this is talking about President Jefferson's octagonal home, which would be kind of awesome, again, to take a math teacher kind of paired with a social studies unit and have an interactive to go with it. In the area of art, here's one that's on angles and lines and a perspective drawing. So using line designs, it looks beautiful right there. In the world of fashion design, here's one on matrices and how you could use matrices to make a houndstooth pattern. For cooking or home economics, we dive into teaspoons, cups, other forms of measurement that are essential concepts for cooking. And then here's one on photography, which is using stem and leaf plots and histograms to understand your digital photography. So don't hesitate to search our PLIX and find some in a subject that you might not think that CK12 has. So right now I'm going to steal the screen and I'm going to do a little live demo for you on our site. So let me pull up the website and share it here. So you guys can see that I'm logged into a demo account here. It is a teacher account. And up at the top of the page, you can see we've got different ways to navigate topics. One thing I do want to call out to you guys is that we now have an Explore menu option, which gives you easy access to a lot of the pages and resources that I'm going to reference today. But down here under My Subjects, I have some things starred, but if I want to see all subjects, I'm going to click Show All Subjects. And this is similar to the screen I showed you earlier, where I can look under English. I can go to the subject Writing. And here we have the different FlexBooks that we offer under Writing. If I open up this Common Sense Composition book, if you guys are familiar with our FlexBooks, this is what one of our basic FlexBooks looks like. And I can see the different chapters in the table of contents. I can see if there are any resources that have been attached, or the details page is an interesting one, particularly as you guys are evaluating community content. The details page is going to show you who the author is of the book. And it's also going to show you a creation date and a last modified date. So this is a book that was donated from San Jose State University. And we've got an author who you could look up here. And then, you know, the book is from 2015. I doubt there's been any radical changes in best practices and composition, but that does give you an idea of when the resource was created. So just a reminder that you guys can always grab any URL on our site. All of our resources have a unique URL, so I could copy and paste this and you know, put it on a website for students to access. Or I could also press the Customize button and start customizing content as well. So I could make any changes to this book that I want. I could reorder the scope and sequence. I could delete the persuasive essay if I'm not going to cover that in my subject area. So all of our books are fully customizable. Okay, I'm going to go back by pressing the icon up here. And let's check out spelling. You guys can see that spelling is a little bit different. Like I said, we have concepts for spelling. So we also have the FlexBook. Here's the student materials, the teacher edition. But for spelling, I'll just expand this here. We have individual reads and practice that go with the reads as well. So that's kind of a rare thing with our non-STEM resources, is to have practice. I want to call your attention to the search bar up at the top. This is an overlooked feature often from people trying to navigate our site. Instead of going to Google and typing into their search bar and getting who knows what, use our search bar and let's check. Let's say, for instance, that I am teaching photography. I'm just going to do a quick search for the term photography. And this is what our search results page looks like. So you can see that 25 results came up for photography, which is pretty manageable. That's not the thousands that we have on a lot of our other subjects. But here you can see that created by CK12, we have a histograms in photography real world activity. So I could check out that. And again, it looks like it's a read talking about the real world. We've got a video, but that's kind of exciting because who knew that we had photography resources. If I searched Jefferson, again, we don't have a ton of history on our site, but if I search Jefferson, there, for instance, is that PLIX that I showed you earlier talking about his octagonal home. Looks like we've got some reads on, you know, Hamilton versus Jefferson. So don't be afraid to use our search bar and search for STEM and non-STEM concepts or content alike. And you can see all of the CK12 content here in this tab. So why don't I pause there for a moment, Katie? Lots to cover, but are we having any questions coming into Q&A?
Not yet. Please feel free to continue to post. I think we had one earlier that was just asking about the program in general, and
okay,
replied that, you know, if you're talking about CK12, we're going through a lot of that throughout this webinar. If you're talking about the Certified Educator program, you might have seen that badge on the beginning piece. We will talk about that at the end of this webinar. So just keep in touch for those ones. But I think you're doing great there. So maybe we'll move on to talking about schools pages and kind of finding content in that way.
Let's do it.
So let me steal the screen back from you and go from there. So one thing many users don't realize about CK12 is that a large portion of our site falls under what we call community contributed content. So Lindsay's been kind of starting to show you that piece in terms of, sorry, not starting to, will be starting to show you that piece. And it's a huge growth area for us. As more districts are using open resources and using teachers to curate and customize content instead of purchasing through publishers, you'll see more and more non-STEM, advanced placement, international baccalaureate books, and even kind of customized books for math and science as well on our site.
Yeah, and one of the best places to see some of the books schools and districts are creating is from the schools page. So you can find it on our homepage. You do need to make sure that you're logged in as a teacher. So up at the top, it's highlighted in red up there. I think, Katie, if you press a button, I think it's highlighted in red. There we go. So that's how you know if you're logged in as a teacher or a student. But on the teachers page, you'll see a schools icon. Students see a slightly different homepage and don't see it. But under the Explore section there, you can see that we have those 4 circle icons, and one of them is the schools icon. And you can select this, or you can also always go to the direct link of www.ck12.org/schools if you want a direct login. Okay, so several different ways to access this schools page. But when you arrive at the schools page, it's going to automatically pull up books in the state that you are in. So here it knows that CK12 Foundation headquarters are in California, so it defaulted to showing the California schools page. And it pulled up any books that schools have published and elected to put on the site and tagged to a specific school or district. So this isn't an exhaustive list. This isn't everybody in California who's ever created content on our site. This is the people who kind of go the extra level and not only publish their resource, but make it accessible on the schools page. So one thing that I'm gonna plant while we're on this page is that we would love for everybody to start claiming their schools page so that others can benefit from your awesome resources. So to do this, it's a really easy process. You probably need to think of the appropriate person to claim your school, which is often a technology coordinator or a curriculum director or some other administrator who can act as the point person for these books. But to claim your school, you're going to fill out the following information. And you can see here, it's just a really quick template asking for your name, a job title, the school phone, school website. And that's how you get started creating this resource. You can learn more about this process. We created a tiny URL. And in case you were curious about this, if you're watching this going, we have books, we need to get them on CK12 schools page. Go to tinyurl.com/CK12claimschool. And we've got a whole help desk article talking you through that process of what it means to publish your books on our site and how to logistically get that going. So there are a few districts that I want to highlight because of their quality community contributed and non-STEM books that they've made available for everyone to use. And one district is El Paso Independent School District. You probably hear us mention them if you attend a lot of webinars because they are really strong partners with us. El Paso, their school district in Texas, of course, they committed to going open and systematically creating new FlexBooks with teams of teacher writers and editors. They have a process to do this and are continually cranking out new books. You can see on their school page in Texas that they have all sorts of books. They have an AP US History, they have an AP Government, Macroeconomics, Sociology, World History, and so many more. I worked with some of their teachers earlier this year, and they were writing their English books and Spanish books and other social studies books. So you guys can come onto this page and find a book that you like and open it up and press customize, and it makes a copy of it in your library, and you can start your book from El Paso's content if you want. That's the beauty of the schools page. Tim Holt is one of our friends who leads this initiative in El Paso. And so we're going to show you a quick video clip where he speaks to the CK12 partnership and why he thinks it's so important to share resources with others.
One of the neat things about open education resources, Creative Commons, CK12, is that when you create something, it doesn't just stay with you. You actually have to put it back up for others to share. And so whatever you create becomes part of the larger community. So all the textbooks that EPISD has created are up online for anyone to use. And we encourage people to use them. We encourage people to give us feedback. You know, we know that we can always do a better job. And if there's a school district that wants to use our textbooks, please do. We actually have been contacted over the years by many school districts that are interested in saving money. They're interested in open education resources. They're interested in having control over their, I think Apple calls it controlling the whole widget, from beginning to end. And so when you control the curriculum, when you control everything, including the textbook, you're in control of the whole widget. And that's something that CK12 allows you to do. And EPISD is more than willing to share our processes. We're more than willing to share our books. That's part of the deal with CK12, is that you're sharing what you create.
If you're interested in connecting with Tim Holt or anyone else that we feature in these webinars, you can always email us at jumpstart@ck12.org. And we're happy to do a digital introduction where somebody like Tim can share his process of what they've done at El Paso that's so successful and use it as a model to help you with your school or district. Our partner districts are always really proud of their work, and they genuinely want to help others get started in creating and sharing books. Just one other district that I want to give a quick shout out to who's doing innovative things with open content is Tullahoma City Schools in Tullahoma, Tennessee. While El Paso started their process with science books, Tullahoma started when they were up for a social studies adoption and decided to create books instead of purchasing them. That year they used the money that they saved to purchase technology for their schools. They followed up year one with math, and they've continued to expand to other areas such as language arts. But it's interesting because Tullahoma saw the potential of the CK12 platform, that we could organize their resources and we could make their books available on any device. So again, back to that schools page, if you look for Tullahoma, Tennessee, you're going to see things like social studies books for grades 4 through 8, ELA books for elementary. There's a first grade and third grade on up to high school, 9th and 10th. Not only have they created these books, but they've localized their books to best fit their content area. In their social studies books, you're going to learn about a Tullahoma graduate who went on to be a Grand Ole Opry star, which is a big deal in Tennessee. Throughout these books, you're going to see that they've aligned to the Tennessee state standards. But when you're looking for language arts books on our site, and you know that CK12's created books are limited, one of these Tullahoma books might just get you the start you need, so that you don't have to create a book totally from scratch. So again, don't hesitate to look at all these books on the schools page, and if one closely matches what you're trying to do, press customize on that book, and you're off and running with somebody else's starter content, and you can customize from there. Katie and I actually both had the opportunity to visit Tullahoma, and we want to show you just a series of a few short interviews with some of their teachers and administrators that help tell their experiences with CK12 FlexBooks.
Yeah, I think more accurately, concurrently with the devices, we had a push for OER. We spent some time at Rice University looking at the OpenStax program, and we're really involved in a discussion that said, we really wish we could find something like this for a K-12 environment. As we started doing some research, ran across CK-12 and realized This is that missing link that we're looking for. This is something that will connect our devices to our kids with standards-based instruction that we think is valuable for them. So it really provided a sorely needed niche and connection that is invaluable for us.
I think it's obviously the future for education, and I think that CK12 is only going to allow us to help to personalize and blend learning, which is the direction that our education program needs to head, not just Tullahoma City Schools, but the nation as a whole. We need to offer what the kids need. We need to offer directly what the kids need, in addition to the adults as well. So if we're not personalizing it using technology, then we're falling behind. And CK12, it's one of those tools that helps us move forward.
So the great thing about CK12 is they have a community contributed tab. So teachers are able to go access not only content that CK12 has vetted, but also content that underground users have vetted or other districts have vetted. So teachers are able to go out and pull a textbook complete matched to the standards, and they can start utilizing CK12 today without a lot of investment on curating their own content. As they work through the textbook, the beauty of CK12 is if they find some content that they want to add in addition to what CK12 has provided or another district has provided, they can go and add that content as they go. So they are constantly developing their textbook as a living document the entire time they're teaching their curriculum.
Our day when we do CK12 or when we do a lesson in here starts with Google Classroom. That's where I put all of the lessons. I put all the links to CK12 there. They do have their own CK12 account, and they do have the 6th grade textbook in their library, and they can access it, any of the lessons, anytime from that particular place. The lessons follow the Tennessee state standards. Whatever I'm supposed to teach, that's what we wrote about, and that's what we included in to meet those standards. We might have an activity that links to an outside source. I might have it just written in there. I might link to a video, but that's an everyday thing. We don't just sometimes use CK12. We use CK12 all the time, every day, in some manner. I'm here. It is not a get on the computer and just do your lesson without a teacher involvement, because I handle this just like it's a textbook, except it's on a computer.
I use it more as a teacher resource. Instead of regularly assigning them chapters, I use it to house all of my instructional information, and then I will piecemeal give it to them as I want them to have it. So for me, it's like having all of my unit notebooks, but 10 times better, because I can access it whenever I want, and I can add all of those digital resources and access them wherever I need to.
All right, so those are just a few of the hundreds of testimonials we've collected from teachers and administrators across the country. If you guys are interested, you can go to ck12.org/testimonials, or that's in the footer of our website. And you can, kind of search for different topics or, people in different positions who might have a soundbite answering one of the questions that you have. Or if you're trying to pitch some of your colleagues or administrators about CK12, there might be some good ammunition in these testimonials that could help you. But the next thing we're talking about here, several of them already tapped into that, is we're going to talk about the community contributed content. Whether it's STEM subjects or non-STEM subjects, we do have a lot of community contributed content that you can access through our search feature. So let me go ahead and share my screen again to do the live demo. And I saw that we had a question come into Q&A that was asking about community contributed content, asking about what would happen if we searched for Jefferson. So that's a good place to start. Again, I'm going to come back up here to the search bar. And just like we did earlier, let me just type in Jefferson. And remember that by default, our search page shows results for CK12 content first. So you can see all of this is created by CK12, created by CK12. But if I flip over here to the community contributed tab, all of a sudden that number went from 35 to 330 results for Jefferson. So under the community contributed tab, you can see that these are created by individual educators or created by different school districts. For instance, here's EPISD AP US History team. I was just talking about EPISD earlier. So when you flip over here, you're going to find a lot more content. You can, of course, use these filters off to the left. If I'm looking for a FlexBook textbook that mentions Jefferson, here we go. It looks like this is for grade 8 and 9. It's a basic algebra, so it's probably not a social studies book that I would be looking for. But anyway, you can use these filters to filter through our content. The other one that I searched earlier was photography. And so it landed on CK12 content, just 25 results here. But if I switch over to community contributed, we've got some cool lessons here. Here's one on build your digital photography portfolio. Here's one on photography in a yearbook, where again, this is part of the EPISD journalism book. We've got a full book here on Digital Imaging 1, Digital Photography Basics. So again, I would have to open up that book. I would probably check the details page and see who the author is, maybe the last time the book was updated, to start giving me some ideas of whether or not I think this is material that I want to use. But all of these lessons can be used right away in your subjects. Like I said, if you liked this Build Your Digital Photography Portfolio, you could grab the URL and get it in your students' hands right away. Or I could also add it to a FlexBook textbook that I might be compiling. So if I'm making a digital photography book and I want to add in this lesson, it's as easy as selecting add to FlexBook textbook and getting the right FlexBook. So those are some options. You can also search like more general things, or say I teach an AP English class and I want to see if there's any AP English. This will be a good test here. So not a whole lot going on. This is all spelling for CK12 content. But when I switch over to community contributed, here's some books like Hacking into Literature, Life and Ourselves. Here's an AP English Lit and Comp book, 2015, 2016. Again, I might still be interested in using that. I'd have to open it and check out the different chapters and sections and see if it's got good information for me. So you can search by just a general subject. I could search literature, or you could also search even, like I keep talking about EPISD. If I search EPISD, that would take me back to their schools page here for easy access to their books. So that's a little bit about using the search bar to search for community contributed content. Something I want to show you science teachers, down here in our simulations, there's a really cool part of our simulations that allows for community contributed content. So I'm on our chemistry simulations. You can also view all of our physics simulations. And these are awesome animated environments with a sandbox area for students to manipulate graphs, et cetera, et cetera. But for instance, I'm going to click on this going fishing simulation. And I could play this video and get to a sandbox just to expedite this and show you the area I'm talking about. After your students would do the simulation, there is a community contributed tab for real world examples. So we have extended this idea of fishing to some other examples of why does ice float on water, why does a peeled orange sink. This is all CK12 content. But what's awesome is that you could have an activity in class and challenge your students to think of other real world example connections. And these can actually be uploaded to our site. So all of these that you're seeing right now under the community contributed tab were uploaded by students. You know, how do heavy pumpkins float? Heavy pumpkins float because they're hollow. Hollow means they have nothing inside of them. Just what a cool class activity to have your students think of the extensions and get published on the CK12 website. So this is, like I said, this is specific, this particular window here is pretty specific to our simulations, but if you're interested in any of the physics, any of the chemistry simulations, I highly encourage you to check out that community contributed area. And then lastly, I'm just going to go to, again, www.ck12.org/schools. And this is exactly what I showed you earlier. Plot spoiler, I'm in Kansas right now, so it's pulling up anything that is local to Kansas. If you wanted to see those Tullahoma, Tennessee books that I talked about earlier, we could go to Tennessee and scroll down to Tullahoma. And here you see some of those books. Again, 7th grade social studies. We've got math, history. We've got some ELA. So either ck12.org/schools or from the homepage, you go down here to the schools button. All right, I'm hoping, Katie, that they're all figuring out how to navigate our site with confidence and find that whole other sector of content we have under community contributed. Can you tell if I've lost anybody? Are there any questions right now?
Yeah, I think the only question that came in since then, one of them you answered about Jefferson, and the other one that came in since then was asking about expansion to other areas. And Lindsay touched on this briefly at the beginning. Because our priority focus is math and science, and our team is relatively small, there are about 35 of us out here in California and a handful in India and scattered across the country. But we really kind of try to keep that focus on math and science. So the majority of growth in history and English and other subject areas is going to come from you guys creating content. Lindsay will cover quiz creation as well. So hopefully over the course of time, some of that digital practice that other users create will be available for you as well. So you'll start seeing kind of partnerships between CK12 in terms of what we make accessible and open and doable on our site. But the focus for creation of that other areas is really going to be coming from teachers like you guys and like the schools and districts that we currently partner with already. So I think that's it for questions. Lindsay's going to jump into some more technical pieces in terms of creating FlexBooks and questions. So maybe that's where some of the specific questions will come in. So I think with that, maybe I will steal this back from her and share the next little bit as we move forward.
So while you've seen some ways to search our site for community contributed content that may serve as a starter FlexBook for you, you're also able to start a book from scratch, which again might interest those of you who are teaching a subject area where either your district is not giving you the appropriate resources, or you just like the idea of a customized FlexBook specific to your students and your location that's best going to meet the needs of your kids. One thing to remember before I talk about this is that like our platform can be used to create a book on anything. It was cool. Katie and I, again, we've done a little bit of traveling throughout the country to see some of our users. We were in Middletown, Delaware to visit one of our certified educators named Dave Wessel. And we were in a science class where he was using a CK12 FlexBook. But then he said, hey, I've been talking to our lacrosse coach, because I think he was the assistant lacrosse coach at the time. And they started collaborating on a lacrosse coach manual, because he was explaining his problem of, he was always sending his athletes to different websites, different sections to see their playbook, to see highlight videos, to see, example technique videos from YouTube. And so after using a FlexBook in a science class, he thought that this would be the perfect way to pull all of these resources together and get them in the hands of athletes. Because remember, our books can be pushed out to various devices. They're going to work on any sort of computer. They're going to work on iPads. It's going to work on cell phones. So you could use a lacrosse manual. Or I told you earlier that I taught video production, and I actually had an international baccalaureate film course. And when I was teaching the film course 5 years ago, I was painstakingly using Google Docs to organize like film clips and articles and critic reviews and film terminology and history. And since so much of this information was in the public domain, particularly the history part, I could have easily compiled my own FlexBook with my original lesson plans and assignments with YouTube or Vimeo clips embedded in my FlexBook. I could have even taken that one step further, and I could have had my students compile a book of their own reviews, because don't forget that student accounts can also create their own books. Our platform is going to do what few other tools can do, which is organize and push out content to any device. So anyway, don't forget that student part. If you're in a school where you think it would be beneficial for students to use our platform to collect their resources, do it. It's an awesome way to get students involved in the process.
So I just want to talk about a couple of kind of general things before Lindsay goes into specifics on how to. When you're thinking about creating FlexBooks from scratch in particular, this is a couple of things you want to think about to work off of. And the first is to form your curriculum teams. So think about who needs to be in that, who needs to be involved, how many teachers, how many administrators, those that are working, both the instructional technologists and the curriculum developers. Assign one person to be kind of the point person, the leader for logistics and making sure things happen. We often recommend that you create a FlexBook in a school or district account, for example, Spanish at EPISD. And that way, if a teacher leaves, that book still lives in that joint account there. But we do want to remind you that if you're using a shared account for a book, that only one person should be editing a book at any point in time. It's not like Google Docs where you both can be editing in there. Once you save, it saves past whatever kind of changes you've made. And so you want to make sure that only one person is doing that at any point. But to help facilitate that, we recommend that you break up work by chapter, have different people working on different chapters, either separately in their own accounts before you put it all together, or sequentially within the book as you're working. Use a common style guide that helps for consistency across your content. And then add in original content or open source content that complies with our CC BY-NC licensing. So for those of you that have no idea what I just said when I said CC BY-NC, this is what this is. So that license is an attribution non-commercial license. So we license all of our content to you guys under that Creative Commons license. And basically, the idea behind this is that while CK12 is free, it's still under copyright, and thus you need to be license compliant. So it's an open copyright, but a copyright. The most important parts of this Creative Commons copyright is that we require that you give us credit if you're customizing or taking content from there, and that you only use it for non-commercial purposes. So you can't take our content and sell it and remix it. It's pretty straightforward. If you create the content, you can use it. If you're using CK12 content, attribute it to us and don't sell it. If it comes from a different place, make sure that it's attributed. But if it comes from a copyrighted book, including from those large educational publishers, you cannot include it in your FlexBook. You have to check the source of what you're pulling if you're pulling resources into our site and make sure that it fits under our terms of use and then externally to you guys under our CC BY-NC licensing. So there's all sorts of information on that in our terms of use on our website and our footer. You can go to Creative Commons to do the CC BY-NC licensing and other licensing, but definitely understand that while it is free to use, you do still need to be license compliant. And then just a note kind of in terms of thinking about creating all of these amazing open resources, we as a team frequently travel to go open summits, and their districts are committed to using open resources. It's been a great place to find out more information about using open educational resources. And not surprisingly, over half of the Go Open districts use CK12 to meet their commitment because we start with core content for math and science, and we allow you to add other content and customize accordingly. So I encourage everyone to visit the Go Open website and consider using their district launch packet as a guide as you're making this step.
All right, we just told you that you can create a book from scratch. You can also write your own questions to accompany your original content. So I'm going to do a live demo here shortly, but I just wanted to talk you through. Here are the question types that we offer on CK12. We have multiple choice, select all that apply, true, false, short answer, fill in the blank, drag and drop, highlight, and discussion questions. So you can build any of these question types on our system, and you can assign a digital quiz. We call them quizzes. It could be a homework, it could be a review, it could be a test, it could be high stakes, low stakes, whatever you would like it to be. But you can create those digital questions and assign it to your students. And depending on what kind of learning management system you're using, or if you're using a CK12 class, you could even get scores passed back automatically to you from those quizzes. So once you choose what type of question that you're going to pick, you also have some other options to customize these questions. You're going to pick the type, you're going to write the question prompt. You can add in answers and even add in distractors if you want. You can include a hint if you would like. A lot of our questions have hints. You may or may not want to include those if you're doing more of a quiz or test environment. You can select the difficulty level. We level our questions easy, medium, and hard. You can add in question details if you'd like. We even have the bonus feature of adding variables for you math folks who might need to do them, or even some of you science folks. And then you have the ability to specify the concept that you want to tag these questions to. So if you're creating new questions that don't align to a concept that we offer on CK12, you can tag the question to a read fin, I think it's supposed to say a read in your library. Read fin in your library, to see if you guys are paying attention there. I'm going to give you a demo of that in just a moment. So actually, yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to show you first creating a book from scratch, and then I'm going to show you how to deal with these different question types. So here I am back on the main page, and a couple different ways to approach creating content, but probably the easiest is to go to your library. And if you're a new user, this might be mostly empty, but as you start to customize content, you're going to see this customized material in your library here. You have the option to create a new resource. You can create a new modality. So if I just wanted to create a lesson for my students, I could create what we call here at CK12 a read. And again, take that URL and get it in the hands of my students. But you'll notice here we've got create a new FlexBook, a new FlexBook 2.0, or a quiz. So I'm going to create a new FlexBook, and our FlexBook 2.0 platform is our latest, greatest platform that has an exciting new view for students and ways to connect content across our site. But you'll notice when I selected a new FlexBook textbook, the first thing it's going to ask me to do is to give it a title. So I'm going to call it something really cool like Lindsay's FlexBook. And I can change the image of my book, which you would want to do if you were customizing this. I can do lots of things, but that's all I want to do right now. I'm going to press save. And so I have just created a new book called Lindsay's FlexBook. And our system's doing the crunching here to think about it. And it's thinking hard. Whew, it's really...
It could be the funky extra character you tossed in there that sometimes goes from there.
I was trying to be all fancy by doing the FlexBook trademark symbol there. Ah, shoot, you're right. I probably did. I probably messed the whole thing up. Let's try this again. I'm going to go to library. I'm going to go to create new FlexBook. I'm going to call it LK book. No fancy characters. What do we think, Katie? Is it going to work this time?
Go for it.
Oh, so much better. Sorry, guys. Okay, so don't put any fancy symbols in your title. Katie would have known that. I clearly didn't. So here I've just got like the shell of a book started. I need to edit this book, and I need to like add some stuff to it. So when I edit this book, I can add content. I can search CK12 and come up with some content, or I can add in my own section. So let's say I'm doing something on, like I said earlier, like film history. You would be taken to a blank slate here that has an editor similar to what you're used to with a Word document or with Google Docs. A couple of features that I wanted to point out is that you can insert an image. So you can find an image from your browser, something that you've downloaded and saved that, again, you would give the attribution to, because we're always giving credit to any of these images that we use. You have an option to insert anything with an embed code. So most people think of this as a YouTube video, but it could also be a Vimeo video, or any other source of video. Or if you haven't noticed, maybe you're a Google Docs, Google Slides user, Google Spreadsheets user. All of those resources have an embed code that you can pull from Google as well. So anything that has an embed code, you could paste that in here and it's going to show up in the middle of this read. Okay. I'm going through this fairly quickly because we have a full hour-long webinar on getting started with FlexBooks and then another hour-long webinar on advanced FlexBook editing. What I want you guys to take away is know that not only can you adapt our things, but you can also start things from scratch from your library, okay? And then I can go back to this resource at any time and continue to add to my book and edit my book here from my library, okay? So you can create a book from scratch and add to it. You can also create a quiz. So remember, we call it a quiz. This could also be, you know, any sort of assignment that you're using digital questions. You can give your quiz a title. I'm just going to call this sample quiz April. I could give it a description. I could select the number of attempts, a time limit, language. I could show hints or not show hints. I could shuffle questions. I've got lots of options here, okay? But when we talk about building a quiz, you folks who are using math, science, or our spelling content, you can search our questions here. So if you're an algebra teacher and you want to give a quiz on linear equations, you are able to look at basically, this is kind of a question bank for us here. And you can see we have 109 questions on solve one-step linear inequalities. So I could select any of these question banks and I could review the questions and I could select which ones that I want to give in the form of a quiz to my students. Okay, but again, I'm an English film teacher and CK12 is not going to have pre-built questions for me. So I need to create new questions. When I press this create new questions button, this takes me to the editor that I was showing you screenshots of earlier, where I would want to first choose my question type, which why don't I keep it as multiple choice? When I come in here to type my question, like something, in what decade was Romeo and Juliet written? Again, you've got the same editor materials here, so I can italicize Romeo and Juliet. I could add in an image. I can do whatever I want with the formatting. Down here is when I would type my answers. Let's do this one. This is the correct answer. We can do 1600s. We can do 1620s. We can do 1700s. So this is the correct answer to this question. It's got the little check mark next to it. I don't need to add a step-by-step solution for this type of question. This would be what I would call an easy question because it's just a memorized fact. And so here's the interesting part of this for you non-STEM folks. In order for me to be able to find this question later on, I've got to tag it to a concept, okay? But unlike linear equations, we don't have a Shakespeare concept ready to be tagged. But when I press this plus button, it gives me the option to search in my library. And I know that I created a resource on Shakespeare. So I'm going to type in Shakespeare, and I'm going to search my library. And it has just found a resource that I created earlier that's called William Shakespeare Facts. So when I select this, again, this is kind of back end, you know, probably too much information, Silicon Valley stuff, right? But we have to put this question somewhere. And so I have now tied it to the lesson that I've created so I can access it later on and I can start building my quiz. Okay. I can preview my question. I can preview it in different ways. Let's see what it looks like. Here's what it would look like on the desktop. That's exciting. So when I am done with this, I've now added one question to my quiz that's on William Shakespeare Facts. So I could continue to add in my own questions and again, change all of these different settings. This is going to be a really awesome one question quiz right now. If I go back to my library, this is where I will find the sample quiz from April. And I can always edit this anytime I would like. And I can also make an assignment for my students and push it out through a CK12 class or a learning management system. So I know we're approaching the hour mark here, Katie. Did I lose anybody in that? Were there any questions that came in about books from scratch or about quiz questions?
Nope, we had a couple other topic-related questions that we answered accordingly, but I think we're good for this. So maybe I will wrap up with kind of our core content, and then now that you've got a chance to see how you would create a book or you'd create a quiz, feel free to use that Q&A for the last few minutes while we're wrapping this up, and let us know if you do have any questions. Lindsay can easily come back on again and walk through any particular pieces of that as
Absolutely.
we go.
Sounds good.
So let me share this. So I did share this at the beginning. I know some people kind of join throughout the course of it, so I want to make sure we share this resource page with you again. We put the link in the chat window earlier on, but you can access it at tinyurl.com/CK12CC-non-STEM for community contributed non-STEM. And feel free to use that now or down the road if you come back to this particular topic. While this is our last webinar of the school year, please check out ck12.org/webinars because you can view all of our archived webinars. As Lindsay mentioned earlier, you might find the Getting Started with FlexBooks webinar or the advanced one particularly interesting for book creation help, or the Customizing CK12 Adaptive Practice and Assignments if you want to know more about writing questions and creating quizzes. The reason why this is our last webinar of the year is that we are excited to announce that registration is live for our CK12 Certified Educator program. Every summer, we run an intensive professional development program for educators that want to become CK12 certified. So to do that, they attend a series of 5 or more live webinars, they watch 2 on-demand sessions, and they complete matching assignments. You can find out more about this and register at ck12.org/certified. Those live webinars usually happen every July for a couple weeks in the middle of the month. So if you're trying to kind of plan what that might be, but definitely awesome resources. Join us for as much or as little of that program as you are interested in doing so. Also, if you're interested in becoming certified, know that today's session can count towards that live session requirement of 5 sessions. So feel free to email us at jumpstart@ck12.org if you want the matching assignment, so you can count that accordingly. And you can also email us there if you need a certificate to document your participation in today's webinar. Before we end this webinar, we encourage you to answer a short questionnaire to give us feedback on the content and presentation of the webinar, with the hope that we can improve this for the next batch of teachers that joins us or educators across the board. And the link to the Google form is listed on the screen, tinyurl.com/CK12webinar1819, and we'll message it in the chat window as well. And it will be in your follow-up email confirming if you joined us today. So with that, I'd say thank you for joining us. Please be assured that you will continue to be supported by our team. We're happy to help you, so send us an email at any time to support@ck12.org. And don't forget to let your social networks know about CK12 and your participation in our webinars. We're on all the socials at CK12 Foundation or #CK12 Foundation. So that's it for today's core programming. I believe we will stay on as necessary for any additional questions. So Lindsay, do we have any new ones that have come in?
We do. The question was asked in Spanish, which I'm guessing is asking if our pages are available in Spanish. So again, if you guys need to head off the webinar, go for it. But why don't I steal the screen back and let me show the capabilities with translations. So let me steal this here. One of the awesome things about being a digital resource, and particularly using digital FlexBooks instead of a traditional textbook, is that our content can be translated into pretty much any language. So at the bottom of the pages, you see a select language option. Google is a partner of ours. Google Translate, it's not perfect, but it's getting better and better and better all the time. But if you say you're trying to access our content in Spanish, whether a student is needing that or they go home to a family whose first language is Spanish, you can see that by pressing that button, our content has roughly, in computer speak, been translated to Spanish. And that's the same with any of our books. You would see them translated into Spanish as well if you were to access one of them. Our adaptive practice and simulations, unfortunately, they're built in a different environment that they don't have this easy translate option right now. But you can try this out. You can try this out, again, for multiple languages. In schools, we're seeing more and more students, if they come with limited ability to speak English, perhaps on a computer, they're looking at the English version of the content, but then on their phone, they're looking at the same CK12 content in their home language so that they can compare the two and start to pick up on more and more of the English. So hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, and the other thing, while our Sims don't automatically translate like that, I know that we've done some projects with teams of people or people around the world. So you're going to start seeing our Sims in Korean, and I believe German's up there already. And so there's some kind of work from there. So if you see simulation, you can pick your language up in the top right there. And we keep getting more every time I open that. So please feel free to reach out to us if you fluently speak a language that's not already there, and if you want to partner with us to translate those simulations into that language.
Awesome.
So I think with that, it looks like we don't have any more open questions. We are going to wrap up this webinar for today. So hopefully you guys learned a bunch of different resources, some basics on how you can create your own resources. By all means, please feel free to join us from there, and we will continue on. But we will reach out to any of you guys. If you still have questions, feel free to reach out to us. But we'll send you a follow-up email with kind of a link to our feedback form, and I thank you guys for joining our last webinar of the school year.